Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this episode you can see that I've got the tie on. We've got the Cresselia versus Darkrai music going on in the background, not the top hollow music as we typically do with Pokemon Sleep News, but it's the Cresselia versus Darkrai event, and you're probably noticing the hood. I wanted to be a bit more shady and dark for this news because we're talking about the man of the hour, Darkrai. Now, Darkrai, we've got some more news on Darkrai. Aside from what I talked about in the last video, I'll briefly touch on some of that stuff, but if you want to know more information about that, I'll link that video in the description. Go check it out, and I would highly recommend watching that one before this one, because some of the stuff kind of will reference back to that. So, what is new about Darkrai that wasn't new before? And my better question is, honestly, what is not new about Darkrai that was before? We have a bit more information. We don't have its ingredient rate or skill trigger rate quite yet, but we do know its specialty. Even though there's a question mark here, and we will get to that soon. It's got its unique skill, which we kind of discussed in the last video, and we now know its frequency is 48 minutes and 20 seconds. It's also got an absurdly big inventory of 28. That's very, very big. Not that big for a... there are other Pokemon in the game that have higher inventory rates after you take into account evolution. Like, I think Dragonite gets up to like 30 or something like that. But for a single-stage Pokemon, this is the highest base inventory rate of any Pokemon in the game currently. But evolution can change that, since Darkrai does not evolve. But why is it so interesting, and why is it interesting enough to make another news video about it? Well, we know its specialty, but there's a question mark here. The reasoning for that is because its specialty is something different. Somebody posted this image. It was originally in Japanese. I ran it through Google Translate, so some of the translation is weird. Like, it says its specialty is ores. Don't know why it translates like that. Somebody knows Japanese. Maybe you can explain why it thinks it's ores. But, Darkrai. And there's some very interesting stuff here in this image, particularly if you click the specialty... ores, which is not what it actually is. Apparently, its specialty is berries, ingredients, skills. It's a Pokemon that has all those characteristics, which is probably actually like all three specialties. That is insane. Every single Pokemon in this game has been very specialized. This entire thing is about specializing a Pokemon and what it's supposed to do. A berry specialist should have berry finding subskills. An ingredient specialist should have ingredient finding subskills. A skill specialist should have skills subskills. It makes it so that pretty much, theoretically, any stat spread could maybe be viable on this guy. But, something you can see, it's got no stats. The first one you catch, it has no subskills, and a neutral nature, no special features for its nature. What? That's confusing. And you only catch one during the event. Now, it has been confirmed that is, in fact, a guaranteed catch. If you just feed a biscuit or whatever, then you get the Darkrai. It's guaranteed. And as long as you are sleeping every night during this event, you're pretty much guaranteed to reach the point where you'll encounter a Darkrai as well, if Rain X's projections for the global drowsy power are to be believed. So, almost anyone who's participating in this event, as long as you're sleeping every night, you're going to get one of these guys, if you're trying at all. You don't even need your own drowsy power, realistically. So, all three specialties in one Pokemon, theoretically almost any stat spread could maybe work on this guy. Because it's got two sausages at base, 2 berries at the same time, and it's got a really powerful main skill. Now, we do know its main skill now. One of the big things that was determining how viable this would be long-term is how much energy it drains. It also can have an impact on healer Pokemon. It might take more healing for it to actually work. Interestingly, this could give more viability to Umbreon if this number is high enough. Umbreon, of all Pokemon, and I'll explain that here in a moment. So, Darkrai skill, we now know this number to be, let's see, right here, 12. That's a pretty significant impact if you think about this. The way the game works, energy is drained every 10 minutes. 1 energy is drained from every Pokemon on the team. That means in 1 hour, it drains 6 energy. So, that means every time this skill procs, it is draining 2 hours worth of potential energy. And that is about 2/3 of a level 6 main skill proc from an energy for everyone Pokemon. So, roughly 2/3, if you assume that Darkrai procs the same amount as your healer, which we currently don't know how much it's going to proc, but if it does, then theoretically, 2/3 of your healing is going to just power Darkrai. So maybe having multiple healers could actually be viable running alongside this guy, just because it's a berry specialist and a skill specialist in the same time. 2 Pokemon in one. Sacrificing an extra team slot to another healer to account for the fact that Darkrai is effectively 2 Pokemon in one isn't really a sacrifice, because, and in fact, it's actually kind of 3 Pokemon in one. It's an ingredient specialist, a skill specialist, and a berry specialist. All 3 at once. 3 Pokemon, 1 team slot, if you get decent skills on it. I think speed is going to be especially useful on Darkrai, as with all 3 specialties, speed is the only thing that universally benefits all 3 specialties. So speed, I think, is going to be the go-to sub-skill on this guy, but maybe specialties, maybe specialty-focused things might be more interesting. I don't know. We'll have to only see. But why are no sub-skills? Well, that kind of comes down to this thing right here. We don't know too much about it, other than it's an item that Darkrai drops. It says, however, it seems that Darkrai isn't currently able to use its full power, according to the translated versions. This is Google Translate, because all the screenshots I found so far were in Japanese. Darkrai seems to have dropped something. Perhaps it will release its power. Maybe that's the key. And then it says, apparently there is still a mystery surrounding Darkrai. Stay tuned for updates after the event. So it seems like they're giving us this to kind of tease the future. I think this key item, perhaps, is going to be very impactful in a future event. Maybe in an event down the road, we'll use this item somehow, maybe collect more of this item, and then based off what we have, we'll be able to use that to unlock Darkrai's sub-skills, and then there's a potential there. Now, the reason why I brought up Weavile here, I want to compare frequency for Berrymon, because that's really the only one we can evaluate how effective it's going to be at its job right now, because we don't have the ingredient and the skill trigger rates yet. But 45 minutes for frequency. Frequency is all that really matters on a Berrymon, compared to 48. So it's a little bit slower than Weavile, but Weavile is one of the top berry specialists in the game. This is still going to be very powerful, especially with a skill this powerful and triple specialty. I still can't even believe this is a thing. Like, I'm still in shock. This is like game-breaking stuff. But yeah. How do we get unlocked Darkrai's power? We don't know yet. It probably has something to do with this thing. And it's probably going to actually give us the sub-skills on Darkrai. Now, what could this look like? Who knows? Maybe in order to encourage and prove to us that we'll all get a usable Darkrai, that any of us can use the Darkrai. I can see 2 approaches that they took with this. Either it's going to be our sub-skills are randomized, and we won't figure them out until we unlock them using this. Or, the sub-skills are choosable, perhaps. They also might be fixed. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be like a customize your own mythical to do what you want it to do. You need a sausage farmer, or you want this specifically. You get to choose the ingredients list. Maybe. I'm not saying that is the way this is, but it could be. We don't know. It could be you choose the sub-skills. If that's the case, then this is going to be the most... You're going to have to figure out exactly what best to use your Darkrai, or use your Darkrai for, because that would be a very hefty commitment, since you only catch 1. But, my goodness, this is a very interesting direction they've taken for the mythical precedent, because this is our first mythical Pokemon. It looks like mythicals in this game are going to be very, very good, potentially. I don't see any way that that Darkrai could be bad, because it's got all 3 specialties, so every skill spread is useful for some specialty, aside from maybe a speed of help down nature. That's the only thing that I can think that would actually hurt all 3 specialties. And even then, that minorly hurts them. So, get high ingredient rate, use it for its ingredients. Get a high skill trigger rate, use it for the skill. Get a lot of speed and berry fighting S, use it for the berries. Or use it for a mix. Who knows? But I also wanted to discuss Umbreon. Given that Darkrai is going to be draining a lot of energy, I think Umbreon may actually be kind of useful. This, I think, is the biggest buff to Umbreon we have gotten. Aside from maybe the change of its main skill. Well, it's two buffs that work in tandem, because without one buff, this buff would be useless. But Darkrai's existence honestly kind of makes Umbreon a bit more useful, because 12, like I said, is a lot of energy. We still would want to be using your main healer on a team that is very Darkrai focused, or uses a Darkrai, because it's going to take a lot of energy away. Unless you're running a full team of Dark types, which you theoretically could do. If you wanted to do really well, you could maybe do like a Houndoom, a couple of, like 2 or 3 Umbreons to provide spot healing and do well with that. And then like maybe a Tyranitar so it heals itself. And then Darkrai. And then the Umbreons theoretically, when they crit with their Moonlight skill, will randomly heal the Darkrai and the Houndoom. I think there's some possible synergy there. And then the Darkrai won't be draining any of their energy because they're all Dark types. That's an interesting idea that's theoretically possible with this. Additionally, if you run your healer and then run just like a normal team, so 2 other Pokemon, Darkrai, and then maybe a really powerful Umbreon, then maybe Umbreon can exist as it's got energy. It'll always have energy because of how crazy it procs its own skill on itself. And then provide spot healing to the others to just support the Gardevoir a little bit more. It'll never be the main healer. It'll never be that powerful. But I think providing a little bit more support, when Darkrai is draining energy like that, the fact that Umbreon can keep itself consistently energized and is immune to Darkrai's effect, while also gaining energy on itself, I think may actually give it a niche. Whereas before, I would have said that Umbreon is one of the worst investments in the game and should never even be considered on any account. So, interesting ideas there. And as for a Dark-type team, I mean, Weavile's a good berry specialist. If you get a good Weavile, it's only getting better by being run alongside with Darkrai because it's immune to this energy-draining effect. Houndoom is interestingly buffed as well, and Tyranitar is already one of the best berry ingredient specialists in the game. Absol, interesting if you want Cacao. It could maybe be more synergistic with Cacao if you're trying to focus on a certain ingredient type. It might give it a big niche over Clodsire. I think there are some ideas here, because it looks like Darkrai might be a team staple once we can actually unlock its sub-skills. But it looks like that's going to be restrained to an event in the future, because they said stay tuned for updates after the event. So I'm sure we won't know anything of what this thing does until those updates come out. And we won't know that for, well, at least another week. So if you have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Down in the description, I'll leave a link to join the Discord. Come hang out, talk about all things Pokemon Sleep and the like. And I recently added the join button. If you have enjoyed and want to support me in that way, then feel free to click it. I don't offer really any paywalled content, but if you want to, if you just like what I'm doing, feel free to support me financially if you're able to do so. And as always, I thank you all for watching and hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.